This is the Dvar Malchut, the royal words of the Rebbe, a speech that the Rebbe gave at the end of 1991. And in it, the Rebbe asks an interesting question. He's talking about the month of Kislev. The month of Kislev is the month when there were a lot of, you want to call it the Hasidic miracles happened. In the order of the month, even though this is not chronological order, the way it happened. In fact, it happened exactly the opposite. So let's go from the opposite way. Let's go from the end. And the end of the month is Chanukah. Chanukah is a weird holiday. Very strange holiday. Very strange. The holiday of Chanukah is a holiday of, how do you say, fanatics. Fanatic Jewish holiday. Fanatic religious, ultra-Orthodox Meshugoyim. That's the holiday of Hanukkah. Just in a very short way, because we're going to go into this later. But what is the holiday of Hanukkah? It happened right in the middle of the Second Temple. The Greeks had basically conquered the whole world. The Greeks were a very sophisticated and cultured society. You know, as far as culture goes, I mean, they were also given over to all this, debauchery and homosexuality and, the sport, sports and, weird, the games that they played and the things like that. Okay, but anyway, they weren't as barbaric as the Romans, right? The Romans, they threw people to the lions and stuff like that, right? And the Greeks, they were more sophisticated. They had sports, the Olympus and the Olympics and this, and they were, how you can throw the discus and throw the javelin and the run and jump, and everybody was naked and they was happy and they were looking and they were watching and they were jumping, they were learning and they had philosophers over there. The Greeks were and the Greeks loved the Jews. They loved the Jews. The Jews were like fresh air for them, and especially the Torah. The Torah with its philosophy and its deep ideas, they really liked it. They translated it into 70 languages. And so the majority of the Jews, if not all of the Jews, decided, listen, let's be with the winners. The Greeks conquered the whole world. We didn't conquer anything. The Greeks conquered Israel. Israel said, when you're in Rome, do as the Romans do. When you're in Greece, do as the Greeks do. We want Greeks. There was a handful of zealots. And they said, no way. They're not going to do it. And the Greeks basically said, what is your problem? What is your problem, guys? What's your problem? Says, we want to light the lights of in the Holy Temple. They said, okay, you can light here. Look, the Greeks did not destroy the temple. That's the Romans did that afterwards. The Greeks did not destroy the temple. And they agreed that the Jews could serve in the temple. They could bring sacrifices. They could do what they wanted. Sacrifices. They didn't spill out the oil. They just defiled the oil. What does it mean? They opened up all the bottles. That's according to one opinion. In any case, they didn't spill out all the oil. So the Jews could have used that oil that the Greeks said. And these zealots said, we're not going to use it. We're not going to use the Greek oil. The Greeks touched it. We're not using it. We're not using it. We are going to use only pure oil. We're not going to use the oil. So the Greeks said, oh, come on, guys. And the Jews said, let's fight. Let's fight. All right, it's not that simple. I mean, the Greeks also said that they raped the women and they did others, but you can get along with that stuff. Right? They weren't the Nazis or the Romans just came and killed everybody and destroyed, took everybody into exile. The Greeks weren't that bad. So you could get along with them. And the majority, if not all, the 99% of the Jews were all with the Greeks. And a handful stood up and they fought against them. They made a war and they defeated them. It says there were only 13 Maccabees and they defeated tens of thousands of Greeks. That's what it says. How there could be such a thing, I don't know. But I guess the Jews joined with them afterwards, other Jews. And they won. And now they could have lit the oil, the menorah with this defiled oil, but they refused. And a big miracle happened. And they found one bottle of oil, and that bottle lasted for 8 days, and that's the holiday of of Hanukkah. So Hanukkah is a very bizarre spiritual holiday which says that the essence of Judaism is only through Torah and commandments, and we're willing to risk our lives for it. And that's the whole holiday. So it's a very spiritual holiday. And it's a holiday which also is oil. Okay. Before that happened like, what, 2,500 years ago. Before that, we have the holiday of Yud Tet Kislev. Yud Tet Kislev is the day that the first Rebbe of Chabad got out of prison. He was also put into prison because of his enemies slandered him, religious Jews. They slandered him. It was also because of oil. Oil is the deep ideas of Hasidut are considered to be oil because they float above even Kabbalah. His enemies, they learned Kabbalah. The Gaon of Vilna and these people, they were experts in Kabbalah as well. But they didn't like the idea of Hasidut, which spreads the ideas to the whole world. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. And he miraculously got out on Yud Tet Kislev. And Yud Tet Kislev. And then there is the Yud Kislev. Yud Kislev. Did I mess this thing up? Yeah. No, I'm sorry. It's not a reverse order. I'm sorry. Okay. Anyway, this Yud Kislev, which is the holiday of Yud Kislev, really happened like 20 years before Yud Tet Kislev. Yeah. I'm sorry. I messed this up. The holiday of Yud Kislev happened 20 years after Yud Tet Kislev. And that is the holiday when the second Rebbe of Chabad, he was also put into prison, basically for the same reasons. It was a different story a little bit. And he got out also. So we have these three Hasidic holidays, Yud Kislev, Yud Tet Kislev, and Chanukah are in the month of Kislev. Okay, so what's the thing of Kislev? So the Rebbe talks about the months. Let's look at the idea of the month. The Jewish people are compared to the month. And usually all of the holidays in Judaism happen either in the first half of the month or in the middle of the month. But none of them happen at the end of the month. After the 15th. After the 15th. Yud Tet Kislev happens after the 15th. And Chanukah happens after the 15th, after the middle of the. So the Rebbe says, so what? So what's the reason? Says, because all of the Jewish holidays happen when the moon is getting bigger, or it's at its apex, it's at the biggest. Because the Jews are here to illuminate the darkness of the world, like the moon. And the greatness of the Jewish people is when the moon was full. It says that was like in the days of King Solomon. It says the moon was full. Sihara b'shleimuta. It says that the moon was full. They illuminated the whole world. That's the job of the Jews. Holy Temple illuminates the whole world. That's what it's supposed to. And so that's when the moon is getting full. That's one of the Jewish holidays. If so, what is the message that we get when Yud Tet Kislev, which is the basis, the foundation, the beginning of Chabad Hasidut? That was when the first Rebbe of Chabad got out of prison. He said that is a sign that there are no boundaries to the teachings of Hasidut. We can spread it out over the whole world and thereby fulfill the directives of the Moshiach, that the Moshiach spoke to Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov had a spiritual experience, and he talked to the Moshiach and said, when are you going to come? He said, when your teachings are spread out over the whole world. And the first Rebbe of Chabad said, I realize that's now. So now we're going to start spreading out so Yud Tet Kislev, but it happens in the second half of the month when the moon is getting smaller. And especially the holiday of Chanukah, which Chanukah comes right at the end of the month, right? Then the moon is really small. So the Rebbe says like this: when is the moon at its greatest? So, of course, when it's shining or when it's full, says the Rebbe, no. When the moon is shining, then what you see is not the moon. You see mainly the reflection of the sun off the moon. In other words, you're sort of distracted from the moon itself, and what you are seeing is the light that comes off the moon. That's in the first part of the month. But the second part of the month, when the moon gets smaller, in Judaism, the months go according to the moon. Every Jewish month, the 15th day of every Jewish month, the moon is full. That's the way it goes in Judaism. And they correct it once every 3 years. There's a correction. They add an extra month. So the second half of the month is when the moon is getting smaller. Says the Rebbe, it's not, the moon is not getting smaller. The reflection of the sun is getting smaller, but the moon itself, so to speak, is becoming more and more revealed. The moon is more revealed. So according to this, we have to understand that the whole essence of what the second half of the month, that after the moon is full and it's complete, then it gets smaller and smaller, that this is the opposite of being holy. Said the Rebbe that no, the moon and the sun, they are a receiver and a giver. I think we did this, didn't we? Yes, we did this. Okay, good. So we can say that when the sun, that's what I just finished saying. So therefore, when the moon, okay, Yeshlom, we could say, when the moon is full and that it receives from the sun, nasit shlemut nalid, this is the highest level of the moon. It is like, sort of like the sun. That's like in the future. That the light of the moon will be like the light of the sun. That's in the middle of the month. Al Yadei, by means of Hidgalo Darga Nalid Yoter. But if there's a revelation of light which is higher than both of them, that both of them become one crown, the moon and the sun. It says in the fourth day of creation that the moon and the sun were equal because they both received from the same source. So the sun was not the illuminator. There was a source which illuminated both of them. So nowadays, what do we see? We see how the moon receives from the sun. But in the future, we'll see how both the moon and the sun receive from the source of light, which is higher than both of them. And this completion of the moon and the sun receiving from the same source, which is even higher than the sun, this is stressed by the relationship between the moon and the sun in the second half of the month, as we are going to learn in a moment. And I want to take just one short break. Good. Bira Dvarim, explanation. Siba, the reason. Ashino, the difference between the first half of the month, when every day the moon gets bigger, and the second half of the month, when every day it gets less. And again, what we're talking about is the Jewish people who are similar to the moon, illuminating the night. The night is the world, ignorance, selfishness, confusion. The Jewish people are supposed to be here to educate the world, illuminate the world. But the moon, the Jewish people are compared to the moon, and the moon gets bigger and smaller. So we can learn something from the moon in order to do our job, right? The Jewish people always stick out. They say the Jewish people are like oil, that they always float by. Put Jews, no matter where they are, Jews decide they want to become assimilated. They want to become just like non-Jews. They get their nose fixed. They get their name changed. Everything that they do, but they always float up on the top. They always float up. All of the time, right? In almost everything. In almost everything. In science, in art, in music, in sports, in this, right? In sports. It's not that there's more of them or that they're necessarily better than anybody else, but they're different. Something a little bit different, right? It always floats up on the top. I remember the Rebbe spoke about Sandy Koufax. Sandy Koufax was a left-handed pitcher, and they say that perhaps he was the best pitcher of all times, best left-handed pitcher of all times, whatever, right? This I remember. This was in the 50s or something like that. I remember very vaguely. And Sandy Koufax was a totally not observant Jew, and he decided not to play on Yom Kippur, and it was in the World Series, not to play on him. And this was just a big shook up so many Jews. We were so proud that here is Sandy Koufax, and they are Jews, and he is a Jew, and he's doing according to the Torah. The Torah says he's doing what the Torah says. He didn't believe in going to heaven. He didn't care about heaven or hell or nothing like that. It just says a Jew doesn't work on Yom Kippur. Doesn't work on Yom Kippur. And he said, I'm not going to do it. There was also Hank Greenberg also did the same thing. Also not a religious Jew, but that was years before. It was a big shake, but Sandy Koufax, that was a big shakeup. He was like the star. He was the pitcher. It was the World Series. And it was somehow or other the Jews always float up onto the top, right? But when they get to the top, they have no message. They have no message whatsoever. I heard one speaker say that that's the reason, another reason puts another stick in the fire for hating the Jews. The Jews have a job to do and they don't do it. It's like having a teacher in class and the teacher wants to be friends with all the kids, So the kids say, hey, you're wasting our time. We came here in order to learn, geography or whatever we're doing. And the teacher just wants to make jokes and everybody dancing and wants to show off his shoes or who knows what, right? Wants to be friends with everybody. Good, well, you want to be friends, but you're a teacher. We'll be friends after class. Come on, teach us. Same thing with the Jews. You want to be nice, do your job. Come on, do your job. Okay, so the job of the Jews is supposed to be to educate the whole world, to shine. And says that's like the moon. The moon gets bigger and it gets smaller. The reason the moon gets bigger and smaller is because Shechetzev Arish in the first half of the month, it gets and further away from the sun. The further that it gets away from the sun, the greater is the light that it reflects. In the second half, it gets closer to the sun. And the more that it gets closer to the sun, the light that we receive from it is less and less. In other words, I think that everybody knows this. The moon is always illuminated half. One face of the moon is always facing the sun. So it's always half of the moon is always illuminated. So when the moon is the furthest away from the sun, so we see the side that's illuminated. But when the moon is closest to the sun, then the side that's illuminated is facing the sun and the dark is facing us. So when the moon is closest to the sun, to us it is dark. And when the moon is furthest from the sun, then it's light. Okay, good. What's this got to do with me and you? We'll see. Talmud, the reason is, because the relationship between the giver and the receiver, the teacher and the pupil, hamashpia, which that's the sun in the sky, sun, and the receiver, the moon, is in a way that when the receiver is near to the giver, let's take an example. A pupil is close to the teacher. A pupil, when he's close to the teacher, the pupil can't give over anything that the teacher gives him. He's busy receiving. It's not a bittul shel because he is totally receiving. The more that he gets further away from the one who's giving to him, let's take the example, teacher and a pupil. So the further that the pupil gets from the teacher, like you graduate from college, you go out of college. So when you're out, then you can give over. Then you mashpia, then you can give over to others. Right? Everybody knows that. A person's reading a book or something like that. You try to talk to him. He can't. Do people read books anymore? I think they do. You can't talk to him. A person's on the phone, right? That's the example. Everybody's listening, right? You can talk to him. Excuse me, can you tell me where is the street? Hello, can you tell me? The person says, what? Wait a minute. What did you say? When you're receiving, you can't give over. The same thing is when the moon is receiving from the sun, the closer it gets to the sun, then it can't give over. Therefore, it's dark. But in fact, the moon is closest to the sun. That's when it's closest. Yesh Lomo, we can say that the closeness that the closer that the moon gets to the sun, and it gets closer when in the second half of the month, this is not just in the way that is a new type of a unity between the sun and the moon, in order to give birth to the next month after it. It just like fills up, it gets recharged. That by means of getting less and less every day, it gets able to receive more and more. Like it says that Jonathan said to King David, your place that you sit will be empty. In other words, when a person empties himself out, then he can receive from someone else. So you might think the moon, it comes closer to the sun so that it's emptying itself out. So then it can receive. That's why it's dark to us. Kadeh, in order that it's able to receive a higher level of light from the sun. Nifkarata. This is something in itself which is relevant to the month that's afterwards. Right? That you have to empty yourself out in order to give in the next month to more people. Says the Rebbe, that's one thing, that's true. But here, the main thing of the second half of the month is not that the moon is emptying itself out in order to receive more. The main thing is getting closer and closer to the sun. It's getting closer to the source of light that even the sun receives from. Shalamaila, also from the light of the sun itself. Like it says, before creation, there was the sun and the moon also received equal light from a higher source than both of them. There was one crown for both of them. Shekiruv, the dargazu, that getting close to this is expressed by the lessening of normal light. Or because normal light, this is only a revelation from the essence, that the essence is concealed, an essence which is above revelation. Raka ora, only a light from the essence is revealed in the light. Just a ray of it is revealed. And therefore, miuta or, therefore, when the light becomes less every day, it's a sign that it's receiving from a higher source which is above light, a higher source of light which is above any perceptible light. That by means of this, the moon can become like the sun until they have one crown. So here we have three sources of light, if you want to call it. There's the moon that shines to us. Then there's the sun that shines to the moon, which is greater. And then there's the source of light which shines to both the sun and the moon. Three things. So when the moon is shining to us, it means it's far away from the sun. When the moon gets closer to the sun, it means that it's receiving more directly from the sun. When it's totally close to the sun, that's a sign that both it's getting closer to the source of light that both the sun and the moon receive from. Says the Rebbe, okay, now this there's a lot of things in science which science has explained, and they've explained very successfully, but they're not true. The whole essence of what science is what's practical. So science comes up with formulas and equations and theories which are very practical. They work in the world, but that doesn't mean that they're true. For instance, science doesn't explain what is life. What is life? What is consciousness? And all of science depends on consciousness. If you're not conscious, if you're not alive, you're not conscious, then what's the whole? So it's something that's even greater. It's something like this. Let's say it's something like this. The same. We have the genius scientist, let's just take the example, Albert Einstein, he's the big genius, and he gives over to pupils, his great pupils that he has. And those pupils give over to other people, right? So we have two sources of light. We have Albert Einstein, he's the source, and we have these pupils that receive from the source. But where does Albert Einstein get his wisdom from? Where does he get it from? That you can't see. That's above understanding. That's above understanding. He only gets a little ray of this understanding. The source of it he can't get. Right? Says, where do we see, yes, this source of wisdom, the source of consciousness, where this is revealed specifically in the dark side of the moon. The part of the moon which is facing us. We'll talk about this. We'll talk about it. So we receive from the pupils receive from the genius. But where does the genius receive from? The genius receives from some source which is totally above all of them. That's going to be the job of the Jewish people. The job of the Jewish people is going to be to reveal in this world the source of wisdom, the source of life, the source of consciousness. Okay, that's represented by the second half of the moon, when it's something that's so high that we can't perceive it, the dark part of the moon. A klal, let's get a little bit deeper. A klal, the general point is that the essence of a thing is always concealed, and the light of the thing is just a revelation of the essence. This biyachas lezulat, this is in relation to others. I think we can see this all the time. There's a thing in the world which is called love. I mean, Freud and all of his sick ideas really destroyed this for the whole world. They said there's nothing genuine, there's nothing real. Everything is egotistical. Everything that's perhaps the greatest lie that has ever been foisted on mankind. Maybe it's one of the lies anyway. But it's not true. There are things which are true and we can't understand. And one of them is, for instance, love. Okay, the way that psychiatrists, that Freud and all these guys that come from him, they want to say it's just for you, what you get out of it. And it's like, animals are attracted to their parents when they're nursing them. That's not so. There is such a thing as true love. True love means that you love someone even if that person is not even here anymore, even if that person has passed away. You get absolutely no benefit. Something unique, you see something unique, uniquely good in the other person, which is above explanation, is above understanding. It's not shining to you. It's an essence. It's like the dark side of the moon. It's like where the moon and the sun both receive from. It's something that's unexplainable. It's unexplainably good, right? You love someone because of what they do for you, what they do to you, but also there's the essence of the person that you love, even if that person can't do any more good. I remember when my mother was ill. She passed away 30 years ago, but for a while she had to be in the sort of hospice or whatever. And there was one woman especially that she had, what do they call it, Alzheimer's. And she was just totally out. This woman would just sit and repeat the same word over and over again. That's what she would do. She didn't recognize any of her family. She didn't recognize them. And they all would sit there and they would come and visit her like, once every 2 days or something like that. Her husband, I think, every day. He would just sit there and wait. So, I mean, there was no chance she was going to get better. As I said. So they came out. I talked to some of them. And we were all sort of in the same boat, I mean, everybody had a relative that was so. So they said she used to be a professor in literature and art. She wrote poetry and everything like that. And the woman was just basically, a shell. But to these people, she wasn't a shell. To these people, this is mother. This is, right? She can't talk like mother. She can't talk like mother. But there she is. Right, there she is. What benefit they got from it? All they did was lose. I mean, they had to lose gas. They had to take time. They had to sit with this crazy woman in a room. Didn't make any sense. It was tremendous pain for them, obviously, to see this woman who used to be, friendly and helpful and humorous and everything, just sitting there repeating the same word over and over again. But there was the essence was there. There was the essence that could be of love. There's something there which was above. That's what the Rebbe is talking about. There's the sun, there's the reflected light of the sun on the moon. That's like the things that a person does, their sense of humor. But then there's the essence which is above any light. It's just incomprehensible. You can't define it, but it's the most real thing that there is. It's the most real thing that there is. And that's the big sin of, the psychiatrists and all these people, that they deny the world genuineness. This Professor Viktor Frankl, he points this out. He was amazing, just amazing. He points this out. There's something that's real, something human, something godly in every person and everything in the world. And that's the dark side of the moon. That's the Jewish people are like the moon, especially the dark side of the moon, to reveal this essence in the world. That's the essence. That's what it means. When the essence is concealed, then the light is revealed. The light is revealed, right? Sometimes you can look at a person, you forget this person, this is my father, you get angry, right? I wanted $100 and you didn't give it to me. I don't like you anymore. I'm leaving home. You forgot this person is your father. You forgot the essence, there's there, right? Why? Because of the light, because of what he did, what he said, what he thought. When we say that the essence is concealed and the light, which is just a ray of the essence, is revealed, this is only regarding others. Because you cannot receive the essence, only a ray of it. Therefore, this ray of light is called light. And the essence is called dark. It's just the essence, it doesn't shine. But in regard to the essence, it's exactly the opposite. The ray that comes from the sun, this is really darkness. And regarding to the essence is light. What is it? Let's say Albert Einstein, I just keep using the example because he's like the classic genius, right? So he's assigned to teach a class in advanced physics. Oh, he's very happy. And he comes to the class and he says that there's a mix-up. He's teaching third grade kids. I got the right address. This is 1565 Pine Street. Yeah, this is the Oakwood High School. Yeah, this is it. This is class number 5. Yeah, this. But these are 3-year-old kids. These are what is it? 7-year-old kids, 8-year-old kids. How can I teach them? Says, I don't know. It's been a mix-up. But you get paid $1 million a day, so it's worth your while. Okay, so what does he do? So now he has to teach these kids. How is he going to teach them physics? So he has to water his knowledge. He's got these genius, fantastic ideas, and he can't give it over to the kids. He can't give it over to them. So what does he have to do? He has to water it down little by little, right? He asks the kids questions. What do you understand? Let's see where you're at. You know what algebra is? Algebra. I want to go home. Okay, wait. What about multiplication? You know what multiplying is? What's 5 times 5? I want to go home. Oh, come on. 5. One kid says, I know what it is. It's 25. We learned that in class. Oh, yeah. So, okay. So Albert Einstein understands. That's the height of their understanding is multiplication. Let's talk about division. So he has to work with them gradually. He's getting paid $1 million a day. Gradually goes. Now, for him, it's a tremendous pain. He would like to teach them university the physics. Maybe they have new ideas. Maybe they can make him smarter. They can ask him good questions with this, but he can't. He can only give over a little bit of light. It's the same thing with God. He's just giving over a little bit of light to us because we can't receive any more. But this is not what God wants. God would like to give over the whole entire thing to us. But by us, let's say the third grade kids, the essence of what Einstein is totally dark. If he would give him over his essence, they wouldn't know what to do, right? They would just start crying, I want to go home. It's just too much. But on the other hand, that's the essence of knowledge, right? These kids are the top of the class. They really want knowledge, but they can't. The same thing with the world. We really want godliness, but we can't. It's too much for us. Like on Mount Sinai, it says everybody died. It was too much. So God has to, so what we do get of godliness, that's called light, blessing, a ray of godliness, heaven, going to heaven, right? Heaven on earth. That's just a little ray of godliness. That's like the light of the moon. What about the essence of godliness? That's reflected by the dark side of the moon. Oh. So it says, by the giver, light, giving over, that's just a little tiny bit. By the giver, shining light, that's darkness by him. He wants to give the whole thing over. He doesn't want to give over little pieces of light. Light shows on how God is concealing himself. It says, Mizeh. From this, we can also understand what are we doing in this world? What do we understand about God in this world? What do we? Little bits of light, little bits, flickers of light. Understand? And the Jewish people, they illuminate the night. That's the moon shining. But the ideal is supposed to be that the Jewish people have something deeper. That's the dark side, the side that the world can't receive now. So now we can understand that the necessity of the moon to get less and less. It's not only when the moon is an entity in itself, that it's not, and the moon is not able to receive from the essence, so therefore it receives light. But when the moon is united with the sun, when the moon is facing the sun and it's the closest to the sun, then that's when the moon shines the essence. Then the moon is, so to speak, united with the sun. Then both of them receive from the same, they're both equal. Then they receive from the same source, so to speak. So when the moon to us is dark, it's a sign that it's uniting with the sun. It's facing the sun. It's uniting with the sun. And they are both receiving from the same source. And that's the dark side of the moon that we see. We don't see it. According to this, Al-Pizeh, we can say that the fact that the light gets less in the second half of the month, this is only getting less in the measurement, the amount of light of the ray that we receive. Why? Because the moon is getting closer and closer to the sun. They're both receiving from the same source. But the it's not, this is limiting the revelation of the sun, but it's not limiting the essence of the sun. The second half of the month means that the essence becomes more and more revealed, and the light, which is concealing the essence, becomes less and less revealed. And therefore, how was this indicated? Because the days of the month get bigger. The days of maybe the light of the moon gets less, but because the light is less, it's a sign that the essence is getting more. How do we see the essence is more? Because the date gets bigger. The middle of the month is the 15th. And the day after that, when the moon starts getting smaller, is the 16th of the month. And when the light gets even smaller, it's the 17th of the month. And so it is to the end when the moon becomes totally dark. That's the biggest day of the month. This indicates on the revelation of the month of the year becomes 16, 17, 18, etc. Because the Jewish people counting it, because then in the second half of the month is revealed more of the essence. And therefore the numbers get bigger, but the light is getting less because the light conceals over the essence. When the light is shining, you can't see the essence of God. And that's the essence which is shining. Okay, so what's the Rebbe trying to say? The Rebbe is trying to say that the Jewish people are here to illuminate the world, but not just to illuminate the world spiritually. They're here to illuminate the world godly. That spiritual means that everybody feels that there is a meaning in the world and that the spiritual is more important, and don't pay so much attention to the physical. Godly is that God wants there to be a physical world. And the essence of God is revealed in every single person, no matter how high you are, how low you are, whatever you are. The fact that you're being created by God, that's God's essence is shining in the world. That's the job of the Jews, to reveal this essence. And that is hinted at by the dark side of the moon and the fact that when the moon gets darker and darker, the date gets bigger and bigger. And this, says the Rebbe, is most stressed in the month of Kislev. The month of Kislev is the third month of the winter months. The third of the summer months, that's when God gave the Torah. That's Sivan, gave the revealed Torah. But the third of the winter months is the month of Kislev, when God gave the concealed Torah. Chassidut became revealed. As we'll talk about more, God willing, tomorrow.